I don't know about you, but there are some lessons in my life I need to keep learning over and over. Forgiveness is one of them. Asking for and freely giving genuine forgiveness is not easy. Letting go of hurt and resentment that has built up over time can be excruciating. Not judging or blaming the other for the hurt, disappointment, or whatever can be a hard lesson to learn. I got back late last night from vacation with my good friend, Father Gary Zender. We had planned this time way back in January. I did not realize then that this would not be the best time for me to be on vacation. I had no idea that we would be doubling grades in school, finding and building new classroom space, hiring 11 new teachers, and finding room for all our other ministries. Part of me felt guilty at leaving. Yet I also knew that this would be the first time I would be away on vacation with my good friend in almost 3 years. Why do I mention this? Because we had so much time to sit and talk, to reflect and pray, to laugh and remember. And the morning we reflected on this Sunday's readings, some painful memories came back for both of us. When I first came to the Archdiocese of Saddle in 1986, I had a lot of baggage. I was filled with anger, resentment, and much hurt. I was in need of healing, yet I hid it from most people. I felt like Humpty Dumpty, and I didn't know how to put myself back together. Fortunately, I found a good spiritual director. As our first reading said, wrath and anger are hateful things, yet the sinner clings to them tightly. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was caught in replaying the events, the individuals, the circumstances that had led to what I considered an unjust interpretation and evaluation of the work I had been doing in formation with the seminarians. The more I thought about that situation, the angrier I would get. When I would try to push the anger away or hide it, it came back with even greater vengeance and often in ways I did not like. I was being consumed by my anger, blame, shame, and fear. And unknown to me at the time, I found a hidden pleasure in my anger. Thanks be to God and God's mercy. I was healed and freed. Yet, when I shared that memory with Father Gary, there were still fingerprints of pain and hurt. The Lord was bringing me deeper into forgiveness and healing at that moment. Have you ever been there? Maybe you're there now. Maybe it's with your spouse, or your children, or your parents. It could be a classmate or a group at school. Maybe it's a colleague at work or a neighbor. Maybe the hurt is recent, or maybe it's from the distant past. It could be a simple misunderstanding or a deep wound that you find unbearable, that slowly builds walls, closes off communication, collects resentments that choke off life, joy, and happiness. What to do with it? And Peter asked Jesus, how many times? And we all heard the answer. What to do? I offer a few thoughts that may be helpful. First of all, remember and cling to the words of the responsorial psalm. The Lord is kind and merciful, slow to anger and rich in compassion. That's how the Lord treats us. The Lord does not give up on us. The Lord is always extending mercy, forgiveness, compassion. And the Lord wants us to do the same. If we can accept this gift and celebrate the gift in the sacrament of reconciliation, and as we do at the beginning of every Mass, then maybe we can become more compassionate and forgiving towards others and towards ourselves as well. If the hurts are deep and you are struggling with forgiveness, then I share this prayer that my spiritual director gave to me early on to help me break through my resentment and anger. The prayer is simple and it goes something like this. Jesus, I know you want me to forgive so-and-so, whoever the person is. Jesus, I know you want me to forgive them, but I am so angry, so hurt, and so fill in whatever feeling might be there for you, that I can't forgive. So Jesus, if you want me to forgive, and I know you do, then you have to do it in me, because I can't do it on my own. I give it to you. Now, the power of this prayer lies in its practice, that every time you feel the anger, recall the memory, think of that person, you pray that prayer every time. I was praying that prayer 15 to 20 to 30 times a day when I first started. All my other prayers kind of went out the window. Jesus, I know you want me to forgive him, but I am so angry, so hurt at him that I just can't. So if you really want me to forgive, and I know you do, Jesus, then you've got to do it in me, because I can't. I give it to you. Well, what began to happen with me is that every time I would catch myself thinking of that situation and those folks, or talking about it to somebody else, I would pray the prayer and allow Jesus to forgive and heal in ways that only Jesus can do it. Now, this was no quick and easy solution. It took me well over a year before I was mostly free of my hurt and resentment. It took me another couple of years to apologize to those folks whom I had hurt with my words and my actions. This is a lesson I have to keep learning and practicing. As Father Gary and I were sharing our struggles, I realized then that I needed to connect with someone in the parish to seek their understanding, reconciliation, and forgiveness. Will this be easy? Probably not. Yet it will be important for me to do so, and important for them. None of us are perfect. We're all sinners. We all need help. No matter how hard we try, there are times we just simply fail and hurt each other. I invite you to take some time this week and prayerfully reflect about how you might need to forgive, or who needs your apology. Bring that person to prayer and ask the Lord for healing and freedom. And then ask the Lord for the grace to reconcile, to forgive, and be forgiven. And let us remember those words from the responsorial psalm. The Lord is kind and merciful, slow to anger, and rich in compassion.
Do you want to be free? What would it be like to be truly free? Hold on a minute, Father. Are you saying I'm not free? Are you saying I'm a slave? Well, maybe. I am saying that we're all born as slaves of sin, and the whole point of the gospel is that Jesus came to set us free and to make us children of God. But this slavery of sin, it keeps trying to take possession of our lives. We see the masters of this world: pride, lust, anger and its cousin, resentment and lack of forgiveness. These hateful things, they cling to us as we cling to them. They would like to keep us as slaves and to make us ignore the work of God's mercy that set us free in the first place. St. Paul tells us, "For freedom, Christ set us free." We weren't set free from slavery simply to fall right back into it, but to become servants of the merciful Lord who freed us. And how did he free us? We know the story, and we hear in our gospel today that the master, moved with compassion, let the servant go and forgave him. God is moved with compassion at the sight of us because we're pitiful and enslaved in our debt of disobedience. God the Son is so moved that he emptied himself, taking the form of a slave, and was born in human likeness. He became a slave to free us who are slaves, and he freely gave himself up to death, even death on a cross, so that he could pay the debt we owed him we owed the Father through his perfect obedience to the Father. And through his death on the cross, he was born to a new life, the new life of his resurrection. Now, we receive this heavenly gift by entering into his death and resurrection through faith and through the sacraments, especially baptism, which we're celebrating today, when we're baptized into his death and born to a new life. On the day of our baptism, we're set free from sin, and we join Jesus in his obedience as the Son of the Father. We're given the new fire of the Holy Spirit so that we can freely serve God with loving hearts. So we're free as God's beloved children by adoption, and yet God is still the Lord, the Master, to whom we owe our obedience. When we think of freedom in our culture, in our wider culture today, we tend to think of it means that we can do whatever we want. I mean, haven't you ever told anyone, "You ain't the boss of me"? If you haven't told anyone that, you're probably an older sibling. I was a fourth, so that's, But we want to be our own masters, don't we? And yet St. Paul tells us in our second reading today that we don't live or die for ourselves, that we aren't our own masters. Instead, whether we live or die, we're the Lord's. So to know that we are children of God, on the one hand, that helps us answer the question, who am I? I'm a beloved child of God. But it also helps us answer the question, whose am I? I am the Lord's. I belong entirely to him. He has at the same time set me free and taken possession of me. In him, I am truly free. The mercy of God in Jesus Christ sets me free to serve him wholeheartedly. So once again, do you want to be free? Clearly, this freedom comes with some responsibility. The responsibility to love and serve with my whole heart. And maybe I'm not ready to give my heart in love. Maybe my heart is weighed down by unforgiveness and past hurts. I'm not the only one that the master became a slave to set free, but there may be some people that I can only see with resentment for what they've done to me. And when I look at others and can't see that we have the same need for freedom in Jesus Christ, the same need to be free servants of God, it could be a sign that I can't see my own need for this freedom and mercy. It could be a sign that I'm keeping my heart enslaved to my past, even though I've been offered freedom. You may feel like a slave to this master of unforgiveness. But what would it be like to be totally free as a loving servant of God? What would it be like to know the peace and reconciliation that the Son of God won for us in his perfect obedience, his sacrifice? What would it be like to bow before this altar today, free to offer all of our heart along with this sacrifice in service of the salvation of the whole world and ourselves? To be not just a servant, but even a son or daughter of our loving Father in the eternal freedom and love of heavenly life. What would it be like? I think it would be pretty awesome. I mean that literally. Full of awe, awe-inspiring, wonderful. So do you want to be free? Yes, of course. I believe you. Okay, so how do we get there? Well, first, we've got to be reconciled with God through sacramental confession, when we can voice our unforgiveness. To forgive ourselves and to forgive others is at least in part an act of love toward ourselves, letting Jesus in to give us increasing freedom and love. And even if right now we can't fully forgive another person or ourselves or even God, we can at least surrender that difficulty of forgiveness to God. We can pray that line from the Surrender Novena. If you're familiar with it, you'll know, "Oh, Jesus, I surrender myself to you. Take care of everything." Better yet, we can pray a prayer that Father Jim once learned from his spiritual director and that I'd like to share with you today. Jesus, I know you want me to forgive. Well, I know you want me to forgive so-and-so, but I'm so angry, so hurt, so fill in the blank with whatever you're feeling that I can't. So if you really want me to forgive, and I know you do, then you have to do it in me, because I can't do it on my own. I give it to you.